feeling?
Good, sir.
Sounds more like it. You convinced me that time. I'm convinced.
Wow.
Everybody's doing fine. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God, to whom all praise is due, we thank him over and over again for his search among us, finding one worthy among us in the first instance in the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. We thank that one God yet again for not leaving us comfortless, but giving us a leader, a teacher, a guide, a brother, and a true friend in the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet my brothers and sisters in our nation greeting of peace, of Assalamu alaikum.
Sir.
But before I go any further, I would like to take this opportunity to salute a soldier of mine that I see in the audience.
Yes, sir.
Brother
Yes, sir.
Hakeem Hameen. Good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you.
He is a brick, a
Yes,
cinder
sir.
block, one of the foundational stones in the Nation of Islam here in Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
He and his family have contributed greatly. We thank him for blessing us with his presence. He's done a great work
Yes,
on
sir.
behalf of our people, on behalf of his God, and we don't want to be robbed of the blessings of his reward.
Come on now.
Thank him for helping us to get where we are today, and you can give him a round of applause.
Yes, sir. Yes,
We opened up, well, yeah, we did open up, but I forgot to do one thing. We opened up in the name of Allah, one God, that regardless to land, language, religion, or culture, there isn't but one God.
Yes, sir.
And the reason why we have this opening salutation, it actually sets the tone,
Yes, sir.
sets the spirit. It is the platform that we spring forth from to dive into the pool of knowledge that we're going to attempt to represent to you today.
Yes, sir.
It is absolutely important that everything should begin with seeking or invoking the presence of God. Why is that so important? Look at the country that we live in right now.
Yes, sir.
Hell, they have almost taken God out of everything.
Come on.
You used to could say, in God we trust. In the Pledge of Allegiance, they took that out of that. You used to could say a prayer in school.
Right.
Once upon a time, when I was going,
Yes, sir.
me too.
I know.
That don't mean that they were praying to the right God, but at least they mentioned him.
Right. Wow. Yes, sir.
You can't even mention him now.
Mm.
And if you look at all of the institutions that have removed the invoking of God out of them, the morality, right?
Yes, sir.
The character
That's right.
of that institution is a reflection of an anti-God sentiment, and it permeates and poisons the educational stream of all of the institutions in America.
Yes, sir.
Then when you add to that not only have they taken God out of the equation, but then when you see God, according to the way it's taught, he is stylized as a blonde-haired, sometimes brunette, sometimes brown-eyed, sometimes blue-eyed individual.
Yes.
And we are told that this individual is not only the Son of God,
Wow.
he is a part of the trilogy, the
Wow.
Trinity.
Listen.
That he is God incarnate, and he looks like the exact same man that enslaved our forebears.
Wow.
Come on. And made our forebears call him master.
Right.
Well, we know today that that is a lie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Indeed.
That his mother was an Egyptian woman. And one of the meanings of Egyptian is the land of the black and the burnt-skinned people. And when Mary had to take herself away privy or privately or hide so she could deliver the Messiah, she went into Egypt, into Africa, to hide. So if Jesus had been a white man in an all-black country at that time, the interloper had not interloped yet. Did you catch that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So he could not have been what they painted him to be. Right. So let's just stop right there. If the image of the Jesus, of the Christ, is false, then the narrative, meaning the scriptures that King James them translated and revised, meaning they changed it to fit the narrative of the white image. If an image is worth 1,000 words, and you have hundreds of thousands of images of a blonde-haired, brunette individual that's the cousin of Michelangelo, then all of the words that describe and support that image are also suspect as well.
That's right. Come on, brother, minister, teach.
And this is why the most honorable Elijah Muhammad required of all of us to be students of words. Listen, and that no matter what we read, even if you think you know what the word means, have a dictionary with you while you study.
Right.
You will be amazed at some of the multiple meaning of words, the etymology, the history, the semantics, the linguistics, the use of words. We have a lot of times we function off a colloquial use of words.
Right. That's it.
That's a bad purse you got there, sister.
Come on now.
Well, the word bad means something negative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But in the colloquial slang use of the word bad, I'm saying that that purse is the bomb. I thought a bomb blew stuff up, but it is the bomb. That haircut you wearing, brother, is tight, brother, right back there. It's almost as tight as my fade, but it's tight.
Yes, sir.
But when you actually define your terms, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has given us a demonstration of what it means to understand the identity of God for real.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
keep it 100.
Yes, sir.
You say it really shouldn't matter what color God is. Okay?
Listen.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
Even if God were clear, whatever you put clear up against, it takes on the context of what is clear.
Yes, sir.
Well, you say, well, he was olive. Okay.
Ooh,
We've had this conversation before.
wow.
There ain't but 3 kind of olives.
Yeah, wow.
Green,
Black.
purple,
And that.
and black.
That's right.
Well, there are no green people, but the alien you saw last night, but
Yes,
I'm just
sir.
saying.
Wow. Wow.
There are no purple people, even though we got some African brothers and sisters that are so blue-black that they spit ink, but
Yes, sir.
we won't go there. So the only other alternative is black.
Yes, sir.
So let's not play games when the lie is uncovered. Obviously, making God and Jesus white meant something to the liar.
Come on now.
So now when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad uncovers it and exposes it,
Come on.
don't you be the defense attorney for white people pro bono, don't even get paid.
Wow.
Right.
You in an all-black audience and you upset with me already because I said something negative maybe perhaps in your mind about white people. You already mad. So if I open up for questions and answers, one of your number one questions will be, well, all white people ain't bad. My neighbor gave me some used socks
You suck.
when my own family members wouldn't help me.
Right.
And that's okay. We're not saying that the white person that lives next door to you is necessarily your problem.
That's right.
But most certainly those that run the world are in fact your problem.
Right.
Yes.
Big time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
Our subject for this morning, and why we spent so much time about this opening in God, is because we are a people that have always been inclined to serve, to worship, and to call on the Creator. It's just always been in our DNA.
Yes, sir.
And in spite of the fact that we have suffered the worst human treatment that no other human being, no other race, no other ethnicity. I'm not saying that other ethnicities and other races have not suffered,
Right. Yes, sir.
but there's a hell of a difference between indentured servitude and even the capturing of an opponent and making them work for you. But even during that time, those people could work their way up out of indentured servitude
That's right.
and become free.
That's right. Right. Yes, sir.
Wow.
But when Europe and America came to Africa and kidnapped us,
Yes, sir.
they introduced to the world of humanity a type of slavery that's beyond the pale of inhumane.
Right. Yes, sir.
You took a whole people. Listen to me on this.
Go ahead, brother
Yes,
minister.
sir. Listen.
You took a whole people, and for multiple generations, you robbed them of their history.
Ain't that old?
And just like a tree without roots or a plant without roots will die, a people who have no connection to their history become a mass amnesiacs.
Ain't that old?
And they died. We were robbed of our history. We were robbed of our names. We were robbed of our culture. We were robbed of the very essence of our being. And we were robbed of the true knowledge of God.
Wow.
And we were given false gods and idols to worship.
Think that over.
Yay.
Every other people, immigrants that come here, they look at us, our Somalian brothers and sisters,
Yes, sir.
our Ethiopian brothers and sisters, our Jamaican brothers and sisters, our Latino brothers and sisters. Every ethnic strain or immigrant looks at us and asks the question. They can come here, and we got the third largest Somalian community in America.
Think that over.
Right here in Columbus.
Yeah.
That's it.
Everywhere. Exactly.
The Koreans, the Haitians, the Filipinos.
Right.
But we've been here longer than any other quote unquote so-called minority on the planet, but yet we are the worst off.
Think that over. Come on. Come
Now,
on.
I know you said I'm not worse off. I have a doctor's degree and I own a Mercedes. Well, you're making payments on it. You don't own it yet, but making
Watch
the
out.
payment.
Right. Yes, sir.
I have a nice home, and yes, no, you in the bank. That bank owns it. You're just making payments right now.
Come on, brother.
Oh, wow.
He gonna take it.
Wow.
So I'm not bad off. I don't need this teaching. But what you don't understand is no one person can rise above the condition of their people.
That's right.
You see celebrities right now, today, this very hour. Louis Gates trying to get in his own house. White neighbor calls the police. He gets in the house, and the police arrest the man for breaking in his own house.
Right.
And it became a teachable moment
Yeah.
for Barack Obama because he criticized the police officer for not doing the job he was supposed to do, which is the de-escalator scenario, not escalate one. Brother is the tennis player outside of, I think, Fifth Avenue, Saks Fifth Avenue, or one of them high-priced jewelry stores. Getting ready to buy a Rolex or a diamond ring. Man's a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And closer to their complexion, too. Didn't matter.
That's right.
The jeweler, man, he hadn't even gotten the door yet. Locks the door, calls the police, and the police don't come ask the man no questions. Just come up and tackle the brother and on camera.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Only to find out the man was a superstar athlete, entertainer,
That's right.
and was just simply there going back to check up on his watch, whatever he had purchased online or whatever went on with that.
That's right.
The late Muhammad Ali said repeatedly, still a nigger, still a nigger, still a nigger. No matter how high you think you can rank in America with your millions, with your fame, in their eyes, in a system that was built on tricks and lies and the idea that I am better than everybody else simply because I am white. And before you get angry about this conversation, we're not angry with the color white. Let's be clear.
Indeed.
Right.
Our sisters wear white.
Right.
Hopefully your teeth are white. If you come on.
Wow.
Hopefully your eyes, irises are white if you don't have any alcohol issues and blood smoking issues. Hopefully your eyes, irises are white. So it's not the color white that we have a problem with.
That's
It
right.
is what is manifested in the Caucasian. It is what is manifested and practiced in the Caucasian that we're upset with. He has created a philosophy and ideology that says, I am better than everybody else simply because I am white. And the Holy Quran talks about this complex, this idea, because it was also the idea that Iblis, in the Quran, Satan, Lucifer in the Bible, from the Christian perspective, Lucifer, Lucy meaning light, was an angel in heaven according to the Christian version of things. I can talk about this because I was born and raised in the Baptist church under a Baptist preacher and loved my time there. I love church, still love it.
Come on now.
Don't mean there don't need to be some improvements.
Yes, sir.
That's always the biggest room in the house. The room for self-improvement.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Have mercy, somebody.
Yes.
Yes.
So now here we are trying to pull this thing together, and you've got people who seem to not understand what it means to pull it together. So now, pastor, brother, sister, we're robbed of everything. This color white has become an issue, not because of the color of the skin, but the mindset that is made manifest in the skin. So the Quran says of Iblis, when all of the angels were ordered by God to bow down to this man called Adam that God had created, all of the angels bowed down except Iblis, and Iblis felt, I am made of fire while he is made of dust of the earth. I will not bow down. And that is the attitude of any devil. Anytime you think you're better than somebody,
Yes. Yes.
Listen.
this arrogant attitude that we develop when we get degrees. I'm talking as your brother right now, but now all of a sudden, Brother Donell gets his doctorate.
Come on.
And now I turn around.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow.
Let me say to all of you, if you get your degree too, you can be as great as I.
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir.
And you people need to listen to me. I am the educated one among you peasants.
Wow.
And this is the attitude that is permeated in a society that is ruled by an ideology called white supremacy.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Listen.
Yes, sir. Well.
That's the world that we live in right now, this moment, this minute. Now, our subject, after saying all of that, after talking about this archangel in heaven that thought he was better than all the other angels, he was supposed to be the most brilliant, the most handsome, the most beautiful angel. So Lucifer began to think, hey, he began to equal himself up to God. Wow. Then he formed a rebellion in heaven. Wow. And God cast him out and all of those that were with him, and thus you get the story, the parable, metaphor, the simile that there's a hell in the earth, 3,943 miles would be about the center, 7,926 miles in diameter. Am I correct?
Well,
Yes.
along with it.
That's where he.
And there's a fire down there. with this fella that wears red leotards, got a tail with a spear on it and a pitchfork. And this hellfire is 10 times hotter than the sun. And according to the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the sun is 14,072 degrees Fahrenheit. So 10 times that would be 140,720, something like that, right?
Yes.
Now, if the 14,072 degree sun, 93 million miles away, can strike the equator of the earth, cause it to spin, and somewhere in this country, even right here in Columbus, on a hot day, if you fall down on the sidewalk, you can get third-degree burns from a 14,072 degree sun that's 93 million miles away, and then the hell only 3,943 away, 10 times hotter than that.
Come on now.
And you still got a North Pole and a South Pole? Come on, brother. Somebody man. So we're talking about love and duty. This archangel is supposed to be there. But Stevie Wonder told us many times, when you believe in things you don't understand, you suffer. And superstition. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
I had a Motown moment. I'm sorry.
All right. You need a lot of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love and duty. The way of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And it is important that we understand what love is. Listen, we talked about this and why this subject is important. And I believe I will take up for my next subject after this, the valley of decision. And what will make you know what the valley of decision is. And in order to have a valley, you have to have two peaks. Valleys are usually in between mountain ranges.
Right.
And what is the mountain that we are faced with? We are faced with the mountain of making the right choice as it relates to righteousness and moral conduct, or continue to follow the satanic mindset of white supremacy that we are currently living under, with all of the vices that go along with whatever Satan has done and plans to do and continues to do.
Right.
But this love and duty has to be understood in the proper context, so that when a man comes along that gets his love from his involvement and immersing himself in the Word of God, following the will of God, when that man appears, you will recognize him if you understand what love is.
Yes, sir. Listen.
But before we get into what love is, let's get into what love ain't.
Come on now.
That's a Southern conversation right there. Ain't your business. Ain't your business.
That's right.
Love is not a Hollywood romance novel. Love is not what you see on TV in the movies where bells go off and lips taste like honey. There are no lips that taste like honey. This is cartilage.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
It's gristle off a chicken bone.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry to bust any bubbles.
Come on
Now,
now.
maybe if your woman puts on some cherry lipstick or chapstick, I don't know, it might taste like something then. But other than that, lips are cartilage.
That's right. Yes, sir.
The reproductive organs were made for the reproduction of human life to keep the species alive.
That's right.
And as a result of God's mercy in that reproductive process, some pleasure is derived.
Come on now. Yes, sir.
But nobody makes love all night long. Don't happen. Don't happen.
Mine is depression.
3, maybe 5. I mean, I'm not trying to be vulgar, but just I want to clear up some things.
Yeah, come on.
I want to clear up some immorality here. I ain't got to chase a whole bunch of skirts.
Right.
Because all of the reproductive organs do the same thing.
Come on now.
But because they romanticize and make you think this body is different than that body, but the end result is the same.
Right?
Sir. Yes, sir.
That's why you got to bounce around to so many, because you're chasing a fantasy. You're chasing an unreality.
Beautiful.
That's good teaching. That's beautiful teaching.
Woo.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Love is not a romantic notion. According to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and echoed by Minister Farrakhan, love is actually the only force there is.
Right.
It is responsible for all that you see in creation in the universe, including all of the living creatures. Love is that force, and the opposite end of the force of love is hate.
Listen.
Hate would be the negative use of the force when somebody becomes jealous and breaks out into a jealous rage. They loved you, then they find out you played on them. Then that same love that they had for you,
Listen.
now becomes hatred.
That's a fact. Big time.
The scripture says the Lord thy God is a jealous God.
Come on now.
That's right.
Worship nobody besides him.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And he needs
Love is responsible
Definitely.
for everything that is, and it starts with God as we started. And if we don't keep ourselves aligned with the God, then we cannot expect good results.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You'll die.
The Bible talks a lot about love, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The Quran spends more time on duty. Because if I say I love you, and we already talked about what love ain't,
Come on.
I can't keep saying I love you, but never do anything
Come on now.
for you.
All right. Yes, sir.
I get you pregnant and then abandon you.
See? Right.
I love you, babe. No, you don't.
Nah.
Come on.
I love you, but I won't buy Pampers for the baby.
Sure.
I won't provide groceries in the house. I won't even clean up behind myself. I want you to do it all, sister. That's not a relationship of love.
No,
That's
sir.
insanity.
Yes, sir.
You.
Listen. Listen. Come on.
When I was going to school, if you took home economics, if you took typing, you were called a sissy.
There was. Me too.
And unfortunately, I, like you, gave in to peer pressure. And now I can't cook anything, but I can make some toast. Now my cornflakes, let me be clear, my cornflakes is the bomb. I put just enough milk to where the flakes are right there.
All right.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I would be a starved man. If it wasn't for my wife and the training of the MGT. So love and duty are two sides of the same coin.
Come on, brother minister.
If I love you, it has to be manifested in me performing my obligations to you.
Listen.
No duty, no real love. In the Quran and in the study guides given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it says, "O you who believe, be mindful of your duty to Allah. Let every soul look to what it sends forward for tomorrow, the day of requital, and take Allah as a shield to guard against the consequences of evils and further commitment of them. Verily, Allah is well aware of all that you do." Surah 59, verse 18. Then the Bible comes back in behind that in 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 13. If I can speak in the tongues of men and even of angels, but have not love, or in some places it says charity and love are interchangeable as well. That's why we got to look up words and their meaning.
Yes, sir.
If I can speak in the tongues of men and even of angels, but have not love, that reasoning, intentional, spiritual devotion, such as inspired by God's love for us in us, I am only a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. This particular quote comes out of the Amplified Bible, which gets more into the shaded meaning of the words, unlike the King James Version that primarily deals with thee and thou and thus and thou, in language that we never really understand anyway.
Wow.
And if I have prophetic powers, the gift of interpreting the divine will and purpose, and understand all the secret truths and mysteries, and possess all knowledge, and if I have sufficient faith so that I can remove mountains, but have not love, God's love in me, I am nothing. I am a useless nobody. Think about that. And many of us are gifted. Many of us are educated. Many of us are trained in many things. But the reason why we cannot make progress, hold on, we don't have the love of God in us for one another.
Think about that.
Even in here.
Come on, brother.
Come on, go ahead. Say
Bring it
that
home.
again. Say that again.
Yeah, bring it.
That's weird.
Think over this.
Yes, sir.
Bring yourself.
We are here. We are struggling to unite, make progress. But because we have not accepted, and this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Mr. Farrakhan are so valuable to us as a people. They brought one thing that we never had. They brought what the slave master took from us that I shared with you when I opened up. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, before he gave us anything else, religion, scripture, the first lesson that we had to learn when we came to the nation of Islam, which is also your nation, it's not a foreign nation.
Come on now.
Islam only means entire submission to do the will of God. Well, if you are a Christian and you are crystallizing the oneness with God to follow the example of Jesus Christ, and you are in fact living that, then you are already a part of your own nation of Islam, that only means entire submission to do the will of God. Period.
Right.
Right.
Not labels, meaning.
Come on now.
That's good.
There's that.
So here we are, struggling. He told us, you have to know who you are. How can you love what you don't know?
Good question.
They talk about black people lacking self-esteem. Esteem means to hold in high regard. Well, I cannot hold myself in high regard if I don't even know who I am.
That's right.
If I refer to myself as, hey, my nigga,
Wow.
hey, dog. Words have impact. The very fact that we're in this condition, not only were we physically abused, we were mentally abused. And the only way you can mentally abuse somebody is with a bad intended words. We were tricked in this condition by words by Sir John Hopkins. Sir John Hopkins, he came as a brother, spent time among us, some say for 29 and a half to 30 years. And during that time, he was among us. We treated him like a brother.
Come on, go ahead and teach.
Wow.
Go ahead and teach.
He learned our customs. John Hopkins is only a representative of that group of whites that came among us, set up their trading posts,
Wow.
befriended us,
Think it over.
gained our trust.
I know.
Listen.
But because their nature was inclined to deceit and white supremacy and the mastery and the tricking of the original people,
Come on now.
he deceived us. Come with me. Where I came from to come among you, you can make more gold. But we had gold laying on top of the ground. We didn't act a fool over gold like we do now.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right.
sir.
Like the fool.
If I paid $750 for this iPad, how did the iPad become $750? Some aluminum, some glass, some software. Who gave it the value of $750? A human being.
Right.
So the gold in the ground is not valuable in and of itself, except for that it serves a purpose. But weak-minded people are entertained, they are intrigued by things that glitter.
Right.
So a sparkling diamond.
Yes, sir.
You know how children do when they see something sparkly?
Right.
Well, that's the level of the mentality of humanity. We live horizontally. Very few people grow in the three dimensions of man or woman, and that is physical, mental, spiritual. Most of us are physical creatures. We live for our appetites.
Right. Come on. Yes, sir.
Then you get a few intellectuals, but very few truly vertical, spiritual human beings.
That's right.
Hey,
Come on.
So they put the value on this iPad of $750, but the value on human life is nothing.
no.
So they sold us as a commodity.
Right.
And depending on your physique, your condition, your strength, Whether you had good teeth, bad teeth, all your teeth, no tooth, one tooth, two teeth,
Yo,
determined your price.
Right.
And here we are today, exploiting our women in song
Yes,
and
sir.
dance and entertainment.
That's right. Right.
Oh, you who believe. If I could speak with the tongue of angels but have not love, I am a nobody. We're striving and struggling to get it together. So we got this knowledge of self. And the knowledge of self is not just the knowledge of our history 400 years ago as a result of slavery. That's not a real history at all.
Right.
That's a slave-making history.
That's right.
We had a history before 400 years ago. We got a history that goes back not thousands of years, not millions of years. We got a history that goes back trillions of years.
That's right.
What is the birth record of the said nation of Islam? It has no birth record. It has no beginning, no end.
that's right.
The Bible says of the original people, we are the Alpha and the Omega. We are the first and the last. No other race, no other ethnicity could be on the planet if the black man wasn't here first. We can have intercourse with anybody and everybody. They will take on our complexion, but we will never take on theirs. And not only can we produce all of the shades in between black and white, we can also produce what is called an albino.
That's right. Yes, sir. Come on now. Truth. Yes, sir.
Come on with it.
This love, in order for us to do duty by one another, we have to learn who we are. We have to learn whose we are.
Right.
Not only must I know who I am, but what am I? I am the microcosm. Everything that you can find in a human being. My flesh is of the earth.
Right.
My bones are like the rocks. My veins are like the trees and the leaves. My blood is like the water. Everything that I am physically comes from the earth. But the unseen essence operating in me and you that gives us animation and life and motion to do things is an unseen spirit, an unseen life force that actually comes from God Himself.
You teach it, black
Come
man.
on,
Yes.
brother.
Come on now.
He is.
And everything that is in me and in you right now on the microcosmic level is the same that is on the macrocosmic level.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Beautiful teaching.
That's it.
Uh.
That's it.
And until I get reconnected with that, get in harmony with the will of God, with that knowledge that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad brought and labored for over 44 years to deliver us.
Yes, sir. You teach it, brother minister.
Yes, you are.
We find ourselves today struggling
Come on. Listen.
because I cannot love what I do not know. I cannot love
Beautiful teaching.
what that has been reinforced with hatred. Every institution does not raise up pride in blackness, right?
That's right.
I went to school, and it ain't changed much.
Yeah.
In fact, they're getting ready to take black history out of the schools altogether
Amen.
and replace it with multiculturalism and some other crap, and slavery ain't going to be talked about no more. It's going to become indentured servitude.
Right. Right. Yes, sir.
But when I was going to school, nothing in the curriculum made me proud,
Right. Right.
made me feel good about myself. In fact, subliminally made me want to be white too.
Okay.
Yes.
I was raised in a town not too far from here called St. Clairsville, Ohio, where there absolutely were no saints. None.
Think that over.
Yeah.
I'm in a classroom with all whites. I'm the blackest thing there, or caramel macchiato thing there. What? Something wrong?
You know what you're talking about.
And we have these little primary readers. They may still have some today. Dick and Jane
Oh, wow. Go back to
see,
that.
spot, run. As you're learning your sentence structure. Spot, chase the red ball.
Wow.
Red is the adjective describing the noun that is the ball.
Wow.
Right.
Dick is white,
Wow. Wow.
and Dick is white.
Watch out now.
You catch that.
All
Watch
right.
out, brother.
Jane is white.
Yes, indeed. I remember.
Spot is white with a black spot.
I remember that. I remember that.
Like-
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling down behind him. Snow White and the seven dwarfs, everything white, including the dwarfs. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all the king's men and all the king's horses could not put Humpty Dumpty back together. It wasn't even a brown egg.
No. White egg.
And finally, when I saw me in the curriculum, little black Sambo. I'm talking about a brother so black, he was blue black, and he spit ink. He was a black brother. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Pure.
But that's not how they introduced it. They introduced it as a negative thing.
Yes, they
This
did.
blue black brother, Sambo. He had hair on his head that was so kinky, it was like barbed wire. It was like my uncle used to say, Negro, your hair on your head is so tight, it looks like 50,000 Negroes with their fist balled up.
So, I definitely, I remember this saying.
I know.
And then this brother, he had on some clothes. I don't know who dressed the poor brother, but he had polka dots up here, some kente cloth material with some polka dots and stripes, and ran around this coconut tree and turned into butter. And then a tiger came along, and how you got the picture? I guess like the Easter Bunny and eggs, I guess. I don't know, but he licked up Sambo. And that reminded me to me.
Gone.
Wow.
That's real.
Gone.
Then I met my father's church, and
Real mean.
while he preaching a great sermon, up on the wall is a white Jesus.
Hey.
Died for my sins,
Come on.
while at the same time committing sin and put me in slavery. The same cracker hanging here now, save me.
I didn't get that. I understand.
And if Jesus is in fact the Son of God and he's white, then the Father got to be white because he can't produce black. My Father's black and I'm black, so So what are you trying to tell me, that God is white too?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Exactly.
Like me out.
So we have so much to overcome, to connect with this love that will open up in us not only all of the talents and gifts that we have, but it will make us unite like never before, because love is that adhesive.
Listen.
It keeps it all together.
Every time.
Then he talks about study and faith. Again, we're trying to submit this love and duty and the way and why there's a need for Elijah Muhammad, a need for Louis Farrakhan. Why do we even need people like that? Why does God raise up these people like that? What you, again, don't understand because we don't know ourselves is that our people prayed on the banks of Jamestown, Virginia. They prayed to God on a ship named Jesus of Lubeck. You can have all this world, just give me Jesus. And we thought they were talking about the white Jesus. They were talking about a ship named Jesus that brought them or tore them out of Africa, dropped them off in Jamestown. Not in 1619, but 1555.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the difference between 1555 and 1619 is 64 years, and that's what it takes to make a slave. You got to have about 2.5 generations. Separate the child from the mother, the child from the father, break up the home. That's why we're struggling right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
No father in the house, baby mama drama.
Yes, yes, sir. Entirely.
Come on with it.
Yes, sir.
Beloved, do not put faith in every spirit, but test the spirits to discover whether they proceed from God. See? Well, God told me that I should go to the White House and sit down with President Trump. And then one of my pastor friends say, Trump is the most pro-black president in my lifetime. I know we're here for prison reform, but when we leave the White House, there is no platform, is no program, is no plan, and no policies are delivered that's going to reform the prison industrial complex. So all we really got was a photo opportunity with a man who is responsible for the prison reform. He took down all the regulations on privatized prison for profit. Nobody goes into business to make a profit without having in mind where I'm going to get my product. So the social engineering brings the drugs into our community.
Listen.
So you can now have an opioid crisis and get help for white children.
Right. That's right.
But my brother and sister still treated like a thug, a drug kingpin, a queen kingpin, while yours get help and medication, mine get jail.
Right.
Hold on.
And you want me to support that? Not until you free every damn black person in them damn jails for minor drug offenses. Then I can talk about it. Medical marijuana, hell no.
Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. Come on now.
Not until you release all of mine before you legalize it.
Right.
And about 10 rich white boys are going to control the monopoly on the weed, medical marijuana anyway.
I already got it.
So make sure that you test the spirits. Because not only is God talking, Satan also whispers too. We have a passage in the Quran that says Satan whispers into the hearts of men from among the men and the jinn. So if I'm praying somewhere by myself, how can I try to avoid the whisperings of a Satan or a slinking devil? The white man ain't in there. The red, blue, a leotard fella ain't in there in my prayer room with me. So why should I guard against the whispering devil except that devil might already be in me?
There you go.
Indeed.
Have you ever had a conversation with yourself?
Indeed.
Well, as long as you don't answer back and say you're not crazy, but you had the conversation at least. Okay. And sometimes you ain't supposed to do something, right?
Definitely.
Oh, that sister look good. I'm a married man, but if loving you is wrong, I don't want you, right?
They're not.
I got the conversation right there, the self-accusing spirit telling me, but don't you do it.
Up in there.
Come on.
Wow.
So then when you say God told me to do it, I heard God spoke to me. But why does God only speak to you in the things that you want to already do anyway? He never speaks to you to tell you not to do something.
Good question.
No.
That's not God's voice. That's Satan's voice in you, whispering to you.
Wow.
Tell him to stand down.
And down.
Come on,
And this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had to do. And that's why they said he had the hardest job of any man ever in the annals of human history. Because it would be easier to go to a physical cemetery, dig up one of your loved ones, put some flesh back on that skeleton, and try to put some life support machines on that skeleton and that flesh to bring it back to life, than to bring a people back to who they really are when they don't even know that they've been deceived. Nobody deceived me. My name is Willie Johnson.
Oh, wow.
I am Sam McGillicuddy.
Wow.
You ain't my brother, Negro. My brother live in Georgia. Don't call me no brother.
It's hilarious.
Not realizing
It's hilarious.
that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was being scientific. Because if I start calling you my brother, and we are in fact related, then your daughter is my niece. Your son is my nephew.
Come on. Yes, sir.
Brother,
Nah.
sister. That's an endearing term to equate in us or to rise up in us, cultivate in us a sense of family and kinship that we don't currently have.
That's right. Big time.
Most of us don't know our neighbors and don't want to know.
Right.
They
Indeed.
looking at my help. Could steal something. And you're probably right, because most break-ins or somebody live right next door to you. It's been in your house. So I understand. But somebody got to take the step.
Yes, sir. That's right. Yes, sir.
You can buy back material things, but brotherhood, sisterhood, and the love of the family, you can't never get that back.
That's right. You're right.
Beloved, do not put faith in every spirit, but test the spirits to discover whether they proceed from God. For many false prophets have gone forth into the world. By this you may know, perceive, and recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit which acknowledges and confesses the fact that Jesus Christ the Messiah actually has become man and has come in the flesh of God has God for its source. And every spirit which does not acknowledge and confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh, but would annul, destroy, sever, disunite him, is not of God, does not proceed from him. This non-confession is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you heard that it was coming, and now it's already in the world.
Yeah, big time.
Little children, you are of God, you belong to him, and have already defeated and overcome them, the agents of the Antichrist, because he who lives in you is greater, mightier than he who is in the world. We are children of God. Whoever is learning to know God progressively, to perceive, recognize, and understand God by the observation and experience, and to get ever clearer knowledge of him. Again, this is the Amplified Bible. It just gets into deeper detail on the words to make it clearer. Well, if Christ is coming back,
Yeah.
and we talk about this love and duty, when is he coming back? 2,000 years. The prophecy, we're well past 2,000 years now. We're starting to gather some more years on that 2,000. Well, no man knoweth the day nor the hour. Yeah, I know, but we should at least be able to narrow down the year, a time frame.
Indeed.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we are not waiting for the judgment. We are living in the days of judgment.
That's right.
And the scripture says a day is like 1,000 years in the sight of God. See, time bothers us because we get older. We have health issues. So we're always fighting to try to gain more time. But in the sight of God, who is eternal, what is time? So whatever he wants to experiment with, what does time have to do with him? He is the author of time.
Exactly.
Listen.
Can you handle it?
Wow. That's
Got
But let me finish this up. By this we know, recognize the spirit of truth and the spirit of error. Beloved, let us love one another, for love perceive and recognize and get a better and clearer knowledge of him. He who does not love has not become acquainted with God, does not an only begotten unique Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we love God, but he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation, the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Beloved, if God loved us so very much, we also ought to love one another. 1 John chapter 4, verses 1 through 4, and chapter 6 through 11. This love and duty, and why there's a need for a man like this, we touched on it last week. I'm going to hit these two paragraphs, and then we're going to wrap this up. We talked about why we have to mention God before everything.
Yes,
We
sir.
talked about the fact that we have been severed from our past, our history, the love of self, our name. Everything was taken from us. The worst sin that another human being could do to another human being is to rob them of the knowledge of God, self, and others. And that's why America is the first to be judged of all of the nations of the earth, because America did really the unforgivable sin. They destroyed a whole people, and even after they were made aware of it, are making no effort to correct it.
Right. That's right.
You got a president that criticizes the NFL, the NBA for kneeling to protest police brutality. And no matter how many times they tell them, we're not disrespecting the national anthem, which is not a national anthem for us anyway.
Yes, sir.
They came up with the national anthem to really force the slaves who were trying to rebel against England, that if you came and fought for us. So it wasn't about us anyway. They didn't give a cuss about us.
Right.
In the national anthem.
Yeah.
We're not disrespecting the flag. We're not disrespecting the national anthem. We're just using my celebrity and this opportunity to bring attention to police brutality and unjust acts that go on in this country, and one national anthem, standing up, pledging allegiance to the flag, and all the while I'm continuing to be murdered. It's continuing to be called justifiable homicide.
That's right.
But we can all stand and say a national anthem, and that's supposed to be respect. When I'm living under disrespect, my entire existence carried on down to multiple generations.
Right.
The reason why God had to be invoked and come. Listen to the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I will wrap this up. Every nation has a fixed and limited term. In part 2 of his lecture series, the minister says this. Listen to this. He defined the word term as a fixed or limited period for which something lasts or is intended to last. I want to quote again from the Holy Quran in chapter 7, verse 34. And every nation has a term. So when its term comes, they cannot remain behind the least while, nor can they precede it. It is our sacred duty to warn America that the term, a fixed term of her power to exercise authority and rule, not only over her own citizens, but over the peoples of the earth, that term is fast coming to an end.
Listen.
We also quoted from the Bible, the book of Revelations, chapter 11, verse 18, and the nations are angry, and thy wrath is come, for it is the time of the dead that they should be judged and given justice. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like Moses before him, is appealing to the modern Pharaoh, the government and the people of the United States, that God has come and has chosen for himself the despised, the rejected, the unloved, the unwanted black man and woman of America to be the cornerstone of his new world order. Listen to this. I'm just about done. I'm not going to hold you a whole lot. I can't, I'm up here melting anyway.
Yeah.
And again, sisters, I know that you all are having your moments, but I'm having my man pause right now. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like those before him, is appealing to the modern Pharaoh, the government, and people of the United States, that God has come and has chosen for himself the despised, the rejected, the unloved, the unwanted, black men and women of America to be the cornerstone of his new kingdom of righteousness. And God is very angry at the way the government and the people of the United States have treated his chosen people, and he's giving America a chance, a grace period, that they might repent of the evil that they have done to us and do justice by us, that they might be given an extension of time. Now, if you are any kind of Bible reader at all, here are two scenarios, or a few scenarios, of how this thing can go down for America. In the Moses, Jehovah, Pharaoh scenario, Pharaoh refused to let the people of Israel go. And I'm not talking about Israel over there in Palestine. Israel only means a usurper, a supplanter. The real children of Israel, children of, to possess. Children are possessed by Israel. The real Israel is the United States of America, and the capital of Israel really is not in Palestine, but is in New York City, or as some would say, Jew York City.
Yes, it is.
Right. Listen.
Now, don't print that on the news. And he's come to say to them, you have to let my people go. But this government don't want to let us go. They don't want to do any good for us or by us, even though they know what's going on. We are those children possessed in America. And that's why God had to come.
Right.
But you also got to remember that not only did the children of Israel come up out of Egypt in the book of Exodus, but also some of the Pharaoh's people left with them. So for those of you who still got a little soft spot for white folks, some white folks will make it. So we're all on the same page. I knew that would sell it. Thank you.
Leave that alone now.
Wow.
Yo, quit.
The other scenario is that Pharaoh kept pressing them. He had to be hit with 10 plagues. The Quran says 9. And the 10th plague was the death of the firstborn. The same decree that Pharaoh put on the children of Israel, kill all boy babies 2 years old and under. That same decree ended up coming down on him and his people.
Yes, sir.
So he ends up letting the children of Israel go and Moses have his way. Then because his heart was hardened by God, he then went after them and he was drowned in the Red Sea.
Right.
And before you go to Spooksville on me, there is no body of water that ever was separated. And if people walk through to the other side, because just think about an ocean. Even if you separate the water, what about the mud?
Right.
What about the holes? And so you going through, you step down some quicksand. And
You forgot about that.
the Red Sea simply means, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was the anger of the people, the anger of the population. As you see going on around the country right now, there are marches and protests almost in every city in the country. And Trump is that lightning rod that's stirring it all up because he epitomizes what's really in the heart of all white people, but because they may not have any power to exercise their hatred, don't let that fool you into thinking they love you.
Yes, sir.
So he went after them, and then the multitude of the people wiped them out by God's permission. You will see war and revolution right here in America. Black killing white, white killing black, black killing brown, brown killing white. It's going to happen. Just keep your eyes open. Well, it's already happening, but it's going to get worse.
Wow. That's right. Wow. Y'all know it.
The other scenario is that you had a man named Joseph, and he had a dream where his stalks of corn and his brother's stalks of corn was bowing down to his stalks of corn, and he had a coat of many colors, and that also has meaning. And because Joseph's brothers became jealous of him, they sold him into bondage in a strange land. And Joseph was so moral, so righteous, so in harmony with the will of God that even after he was imprisoned by being falsely accused by the Pharaoh's wife of that era, that Pharaoh made Joseph the master of the grain house. And anytime you talk about grain, you're talking about bread, you're talking about food, you're talking about power. What if you controlled all the food in America? You'd have some power, wouldn't you? And Joseph was only second in power to Pharaoh. Then you have the only successful prophet in the scripture, which was Jonah. Jonah didn't want to do his job. In fact, he ran from the job.
Wow.
He didn't want to go to Nineveh at all. So he ran, got on a ship, a storm came up. The crew threw him overboard as he fell asleep in the hull of the ship. And he allegedly got swallowed by a fish, and that's another whole conversation. But he got spit up on dry land, and Jonah accepted his responsibility and preached to Nineveh. And Nineveh was the only recorded city or state that ever actually repented. Not only did Nineveh repent, but it started at the top. The king put himself in sackcloth and ashes, prayed and repented, and led the whole nation to repentance, and it brought Nineveh another 400 or 500 years. Those are scenarios that America could have taken advantage of. But as the result of the election of Trump, that window of opportunity,
Gone.
it wasn't that wide in the first place. It might still have a crack that you probably can't see because of the trim around the window.
No, wow.
So it looks like we get ready to have a Moses, Jehovah, Pharaoh scenario right here in the United States of America.
Bring it.
Because Trump don't intend to budge. He don't apologize for nothing. He doubles down, triples down, then retells the lie again, comes up with another distraction over here, that distraction over there, that distraction happened over there.
Right.
We can go over there.
Right.
Real snake.
So this is the context that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan finds himself in, is telling America every nation has a turn. You owe it to yourself to subscribe, and every time you see a brother or sister out there with this, get one.
Right. Come on now.
Don't tell me it ain't your religion. I don't believe in that.
Right.
You read the USA Today. You got social media platforms, the internet. Have you ever asked the social media people what they believe in? Some of them are atheists.
Right.
Some of them are hypocrites. Some of them are white supremacists.
Right.
But you read it.
Right. Yes, sir.
You got an iPhone. Do you know what Steve Jobs' religion was? Do you know what Steve Jobs thought about you? Miss iPhone and Mr. iPhone 10?
Right. Come on. Final call newspaper.
Get your paper.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
Let's
now.
close it. We close it down. We close it down. I see you out there. Saw you yawning. I saw you get your up. Every nation has a fixed term.
Listen.
In order to let them know about this term, someone has to give the call.
Yes,
We
sir.
have in the book of Revelations, come out of her, my people,
That's right.
that ye be not partakers of her sins, and receive not of her plagues. Let my people go.
Yes, sir.
But we really have to change this verse up, though, because white people have really already let us go.
Right.
We can't get no jobs. We the last hired, the first fired.
They won't leave.
So Pharaoh has really let us go.
No more.
We now got to say to us, let Pharaoh go.
Go. Right. Very good. Yes, sir.
So the minister says, my task as I see it is to properly represent the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to black people in America and throughout the world. Why must Elijah Muhammad be properly represented? It is because that man And that man alone holds the key to our victory over mental death, our victory over the hell that we have suffered in our 400-year sojourn in America. Since Elijah Muhammad is such an important man to our future and the future of the world, it is necessary, it is proper that he be properly understood. It is necessary and vitally important that this word, his teaching, be properly understood by us all, that we may act on the good counsel and advice that he gives to us and save our lives and the lives of our families. It is not in the interest of our enemies that the messianic figure among us be properly understood. It is not in the interest of the United States government and her agencies that any true leadership for black people be properly understood or seen in a proper light. Therefore, this government and her agencies have worked night and day to destroy the image of proper leadership for us, and they have worked to give us leaders that they themselves control. The direction that these leaders travel in is a direction given by the very enemy that we should be seeking to get away from. So, nation has a fixed and definitive term. Let my people go. Let Pharaoh go. And we close with the most current one.
Yes, sir.
What is troubling America?
Right.
Now, I know you don't have the time for me to go through all of the trouble.
Everything.
We could be here for a while, and I could get myself wound up here this morning.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll make sure you're still awake. That's all.
Yes, sir. It's too bad.
What is troubling America?
Yes, sir.
Every nation has a fixed term, or every nation has a term. Let my people go, let Pharaoh go. What's troubling America? There's a controversy out right now. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been working among us for over 62 years.
That's right.
20 years, or 19 to 20 years under the presence of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and now 40 years by his permission, in his absence, and he has done work in all aspects of life. He did a documentary that took about 14 years to put together.
Right.
Of his journey, his life journey through music.
Listen.
He is a consummate violinist.
That's right.
Of the top caliber.
Yes, sir.
Used to be a calypso singer.
Right.
But is a proficient violinist. Has done many concertos throughout the country over the years. And he compiled this documentary with some of the greatest artists of our time over multiple genres, and just showed his life.
Right.
What about maybe an hour and a half, 2-hour presentation, and Netflix was going to show it.
That's right.
So that you would see, you see me up here right now, but you don't know me. Those of you that don't know me.
Wow.
Listen.
So if I'm preaching and I'm being emotional, or I'm being emphatic, or I'm trying to drive a point home, and that's all you know of me is my public presentations, then you really don't know my human side.
Listen.
So you may say, well, that brother Donell, man, every time I see that boy, he just got his mouth wide open, bald head sweating, and whew, that's a tough guy.
No.
But you didn't see me when I was holding the grandbaby. You didn't see me when I kissed all the babies in the building. You didn't see me when I helped the old lady across the street.
Right, come
You
on.
didn't see me when I took a bullet for somebody else. You didn't see my humanity. You saw me in war gear fighting a war of propaganda because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, right?
Right.
The prince of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places.
That's right.
Wow.
Oh,
All right now.
You know,
So on this documentary, we would have got a chance to see the real human face of Farrakhan, but white jewelry
Right.
in particular, and white Gentiles in general. Don't never want you to see the humanity of a strong black individual,
Right.
particularly male, but not even female.
Right.
right.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
They never want a leader that gets black people to focus on their own economic development.
Right.
don't
Yes, sir.
even know.
We can be angry with the immigrants, and almost all of them, name the immigrant, name the ethnicity, they have set up shop in the black community.
Mhm.
Definitely.
We go to them, they may give us bad meat, they may sell crack and reefer
Mhm.
out of the Arab carryout, the Indian carryout. The Koreans may beat us on Facebook with sticks because they botched a fake eyelash job.
Right.
They beat the woman with the fake eyelash and the mama.
Yes, sir.
But next week, them same folks be right back in that same shop.
Mhm.
They don't respect us, but you can't be mad at them.
Come on.
There is a need that we have with all the weave. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow.
Why don't we sell some hair? Why don't we do some weaving? Why don't we do our own nails?
Indeed.
Why don't we sell? We ain't got to protest it. If you don't hire some of us, we ain't coming here no more. Give me a job, give me a job. You free. That's what you argue with me about. I'm free.
Come on.
But then act like it.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
Exactly.
If there's a crack house across the street in my neighborhood, I don't smoke, I don't drink, we never have. Tried it.
Wow.
Just didn't like the taste of Cavassier. No, there wasn't no Cavassier in my day. Bourbon,
Okay.
gin and juice, vodka.
You can't believe.
But what I'm saying is that you ain't got to boycott somebody else. Just set up your own.
Right.
That's the best boycott in the world.
Yo,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Set up your own. Serve yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Yes,
All
sir.
the work. Get it.
A nation is no greater than its service to the weak and the poor and the disadvantaged of that nation. If we believe in the scriptures, particularly of the Bible and the New Testament, Jesus lays out a yardstick that will be the determining criterion of the judgment of God of a nation in the last days. Certainly in a country that professes to be a Christian country based on a Judeo-Christian ethic, this criterion should be held high as the measuring stick to help us to see how far off the country is and what danger the country is in by measuring its distance from the criterion.
Right.
Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
What is the criterion laid down by the master himself, who will be judging? One of the disciples asked the master Jesus, when he gave them the criterion that they should minister unto the sick, the imprisoned, and those out of doors. When were you sick and in prison, and we ministered not unto you, Jesus? When were you homeless or out of doors, Master, and we sheltered you not? Master, when were you without, and we did not do for you? And the Master Jesus said, inasmuch as you have not done this to the least of these my brethren, you have not done it also unto me. The Master laid down the criterion.
Yes, sir.
And this is the crux of what will make us focus on what is called real love, the performance of duty. And this is actually the life that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has lived his entire life.
Right.
But more formally in the forefront the past 62 plus years. Love and duty. Do not think small. Do not do for a few, but think of the whole.
Yes, sir.
And even though the messenger of God is only charged with a clear delivery of the message, but his love for his people makes him go beyond that and set up businesses and buy farmland. But his only responsibility by God is deliver the message clearly.
Yes, sir.
So everything else is off of his love for us.
Yes, sir.
And we have to wake up real quick and start loving each other and working better together. It don't mean we're not going to disagree. Just don't become disagreeable. There's a difference between disagreeing and then the conversation degenerating into an emotional, playing the dozen, name calling trip because you can't have your way because your ego is too tied up in it. Here's a lesson that I've learned over the years. I don't care what I think we need to do. And Lord knows I have plenty of ideas that I think would really help us. But if I get in a room with a group of people, intelligent people, educated people, not so educated people, but people who are sincere about helping our people move forward.
Yes, sir.
And some ideas are tossed around. And I dropped my idea out there. But all the ideas that are dropped out there, mine is not the one chosen to go with.
Come on, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on. Yes, sir.
Here's the lesson that I learned. There's a story told by the prophet. It's also told in the secular world by the generals. There was a battle that was about to take place, and all of the captains and all of the generals came up with a plan that they thought would help them win the battle. And one of the plans was so good that not only would it have won the battle, it could have possibly ended the war. But none of the other generals agreed with it. So the head man, or the 5-star general, or the one who was in charge of the plan, went with the lesser idea that potentially would not win the battle or the war, because he had agreement and unity of the whole behind the lesser idea, which would give it more power, than to have disunity with the better idea, because an idea in and of itself cannot carry itself out. People have to carry an idea out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So don't get hung up on your ideas and stop what I say, and then wonder why you ain't making no progress. Humility requires
Absolutely.
that you have to let people make mistakes. That's just life. It can't always go your way. Yes, you may know the way. Yes,